Hello everybody and welcome back inside the box for another episode of Gunpla Kitbash with me, Kukamatsu. In this episode we're going to start painting the inner frame. So let's jump right in. Okay, it's all white inside the box, so it's time to do some airbrushing. Actually, I'm going to do mostly hand painting today. I'm going to do the inner frame, but I'm going to start with some priming, which I'll use the airbrush for. I like to prime using this. If you've watched my channel before, you know this. It's a Tamiya XF69 NATO Black. It's just a really nice base color, and because it is an acrylic, but it's a lacquer-based paint, so it's great as a primer. It does sort of etch the surface in the way that primers need to do to be effective. So I'm going to use that. I'll be using my Iwata Revolution CR airbrush. Really great airbrush and super reliable. And I'm going to be thinning the paint with the Tamiya acrylic paint X20A thinner, about 10%. I get asked a lot about why I don't use other methods for painting metal, or people suggest other methods for painting metal, and particularly during my Blitz Gundam build, I did some chrome painting and discovered a lot about other materials that are available out there, and a lot of great suggestions from people that I tried. Something I discovered from that process that I think I already knew, which is that I just don't like using lacquer paints, like the really smelly ones. The acrylic lacquer paints are super convenient because they not only can you clean them up with water, but they really don't smell that much. I still wear a respirator when I'm airbrushing, but you know, if you just open the jar, you're not going to be overwhelmed by smell. Whereas with lacquer paint, you do get that really strong smell, and I just, at the point in my life where I don't want to do that with my hobby if I can avoid it. I did that a lot in my professional life when I was an animatronics builder and creature special effects technician, I guess you'd say. I spend a lot of time around smelly chemicals, and I'm not interested in doing that as my hobby if I can avoid it. So all that to say, I'm going to stick with my normal technique of doing metal painting. It is super easy, and I really like the results, so I figure why change it if it's working. So apologies if you've watched my series before. This is going to be a bit of a repeat information because it's going to be the same technique that I normally use, but here we go. So I've prepared all of the parts just by putting them either in alligator clips, or if they don't fit in an alligator clip, I use some sticky tack on the end of a stick. And I'm just going to go through all of these parts. I'm going to do it pretty quickly and get this stuff primed. The wonderful thing about the Tamiya paint is that it goes on dry. You don't have to do a wet paint. Some paints do, you know, you have to put on a thicker layer. It has some self-leveling thinner in it, and it goes on wet, and then it sort of spreads out over and it dries nicely. Particularly with glossy paints, that is really important. With this stuff, it's more of like a dry painting technique. I don't know if that's really the right technical term, but essentially what happens is the paint goes on and it dries almost instantly on the part. I find that really super easy to manage and convenient because you can put the part down almost right away, and it also doesn't create a cloud of paint in the air because it's either going to dry on the part or on the paper behind it. When I first started using an airbrush, this is the paint I happened to start with, and I've been so happy with it that I haven't really done a lot of exploration. I did a little bit, and just not really happy with how true water-based paints work with an airbrush, and not happy with the lacquer paints because of the smell. And so this is this wonderful kind of middle ground. You get a really nice result. It's really easy to get a good result out of an airbrush, and it makes the whole process really enjoyable rather than a chore. So I'm going to get going on priming all of these parts. Okay, I have everything primed with the XF69, and now we're going to do some hand painting using Gunmetal X10 from Tamiya. This is a nice dark kind of metal color. I mean, gunmetal is just such a cool color anyway, basically whoever makes it. The Tamiya one is really nice as well. So what I'm going to do here is really infuse the brush with lots of paint to start, and then just sort of squeeze it out. I'm not doing a dry brush technique here, but I don't want too much paint on the brush for this process. I'm going to take it and I'm just going to drag it across the surface. Now, part of the thing about Tamiya paints drying really quick out of the airbrush is that they're quite difficult to use as hand brushing, generally speaking. I have heard that you know, putting a retarder in it really helps with that. But I don't tend to do a lot of hand brushing, so it's not something that I've really experimented with. What that does is just lets the paint spread out a little bit more before it dries, so you don't end up with sort of brush stroke marks in your paint. And that's kind of why I'm doing it sort of without very much paint on the brush here, just to make sure that that I'm not going to end up with some serious brush strokes. A lot of this is not going to be shown. It's going to be under panels and stuff like that. But I enjoy this process so much that I tend to just do it to the entire inner frame. And it's so simple and quick and easy that I figure why not. Not sure if you can hear that goose in the background, but this time of year there are a couple of geese who usually nest just outside my window, and before they do that, they make quite a lot of noise. Sometimes they're fighting with other geese for the space, sometimes they're just claiming the space, but a few weeks of loud goose outside my window. They're a bit late this year. This time last year they were already in the nest and waiting for them to hatch. They haven't actually laid the eggs this year, so I'm wondering what will happen. Okay, that's looking pretty good. That's basically what I'm looking for, is just an overall once over. The nice thing about the starting with the XF69 is that you don't have to actually get full coverage at this stage. It doesn't really matter because you know, it's just going to be black where it doesn't end up being the gunmetal. And actually that's an improvement, I think, rather than it being just solid gunmetal. Having some of the duller black in the crevices is quite good. We were talking in the comments in the last video about the Eclipse Gundam, the master grade Eclipse. So I don't have it yet, but I am looking forward to getting it at some point. I'm not super good at like being the first one on the website to buy them, so I tend to get it in maybe the second or third wave, so I haven't gotten it yet. Gundam kits are a little bit harder to get lately due to the just sort of global shipping problems. I think it's been that way. I mean, the pandemic has made model building an even more popular hobby, and I think that keeping up with that along with shipping issues has not been easy, but pretty lucky in Canada. We do get the kits fairly quickly after release, but like I say, it's limited quantities to each online retailer, so you have to be quick or know when they're going to release them to pick one up. But curious to know if anybody else out there has it and what you think of it. It seems like it's quite a cool kit. The Virtue is also out. I'm less excited about that one, to be honest. I might get it eventually. I actually like it better without the armor than with, so I don't know if I want to pay the price for all that extra plastic, knowing that I'd probably just not put it on. But we'll see, we'll see. I have enough plans and enough in my backlog to last me a little while, so I'm not in a big rush to get any of those kits at the moment. But if anybody else out there has the Virtue, I'm curious what you think of that one as well. It's been kind of a hectic week this week. A lot happened, and work is quite busy at the moment. So I was almost thinking maybe even not doing a video this week just because so much has been going on. But I'm really glad that I did sit down and do some stuff. It serves as a wonderful stress relief after a long week, and I'm super excited to be into the painting stage now. Really looking forward to getting color on this guy. Okay, so I've let that dry now for a few hours just to make absolutely certain that it's not going to be affected by the next step, which is going to be dry brushing some XF16 flat aluminum onto it. So for this one, I'm going to start again by getting lots of paint into the bristles of the brush to make sure it's really not just sitting on the surface, but really in there. But then, rather than just wiping some of it off, I'm going to wipe a lot of it off onto this paper towel. And then I'm just going to gently drag it across the surface just to hit the high parts. This is probably the most satisfying part of this process because it's so easy, but really brings out the details and makes it look like steel. You don't want to have too much paint on the bristles at this stage because it'll just be overwhelming. You want to be able to control it, do it slowly. You can see I'm slowly building it up over several passes until I like what it looks like. And the paint on the brush actually goes surprisingly far because you really don't need much for it to do its job. And there is a surprising amount of paint left in the bristles even after wiping it all off. There we go, that's all there is to it. I think that's looking pretty good. All of the metal parts are painted. They all look like metal. I just love the result of this technique. I can't get enough of it. Maybe I should just paint everything metal. Thank you very much for watching. That is the end of this week's episode. If you enjoyed the video, I'd appreciate a like on the way out, and we'll see you in the next one. Bye-bye.